Welcome to Car Stories. Uh, in this channel, we are focused on the cars in the 15 to 25 lakh on-road price segment in India. Basically, what is classified as the mid segment. There are probably about 10 to 12 crossover SUVs in this segment, and around four sedans. And each of these would have anything from 8 to 20 variants, ranging from petrol, diesel, automatic, manual, intelligent manual, clutchless manual, um, and so on. So it's a very wide basket, and even within the same car model, the price range difference from the lowest variant to the highest variant is typically in the range of 3 to 5. So it's a pretty wide range for you to select, and it causes a lot of confusion. So I'm going to share with you today the process I had followed for picking a car which worked for me. So I'm going to basically discuss the process and what's the best way to make sure that you have made an informed decision in this segment by looking at all the options that are there on the table. Okay, so let's now see how we should go about picking a car. My recommendation, this is basically what I did, was that I picked a set of websites which are neutral third-party websites which compare all the cars in the market today in India. Typical names are cartrade.com, cardekho.com, carwale.com. Carwale is the one I used most, but you could use any of the others. 91wheels.com. There are many others. You just search do a Google search and you'll get lots of those. What these websites will typically do is that they will let you compare two or more cars simultaneously. And what you can do is you can simply go to the websites, you can pick the car manufacturer, you can pick the car model, and you can pick the car variant. And what it will tell you is, besides the price comparison, which is easy, it will list out all other parameters. The engine details, the size details, the space details internally, the external body details, the lighting details, the comfort and convenience features, the safety features, the infotainment features, the telematics features, the connected car features, and the details about the instrument cluster. So you get a very long list of comparisons between two or more cars as to whether the cars, which car has which feature. Now you can do a comparison across cars, you can do a comparison across cars within the same manufacturer, you can do a comparison with the same model of the same manufacturer but different variants. So this way what will happen is you will be able to figure out what, based on the models and options and the prices, a short list about 8 or 10 which kind of work for you. Now it is possible that some of the features listed in the sites you may not be fully comprehending as to what it means, and in real life one option to narrow it down further is to now go to the website of the cars that you have shortlisted and download the brochures of each of these. Now cars manufacturers now put out on their websites pretty detailed feature list of their models, including for a particular model the different variants, and that will really help you narrow this list down. Once you narrow this list down to 8 or 10 cars, you can proceed further and then do a test drive. Try to see which cars look good for you, understand from the dealer what the features are which you haven't fully understood, and then you can make an informed choice. That's the main strategy that I would recommend at this point in time, given that you will have, if you do the maths of 10 crossover SUVs, 4 sedans, so 14 options, each of them 8 to 10 variants, you're talking about 100 150 plus uh, options on the table in the 15 to 25 lakh range, and you really want to make sure that for the price that you want to pick, you got what you wanted, and so this will help you in doing that. Okay, let's take a look at some of the pitfalls that we typically face when we start this journey. And so, even after shortlisting 8 to 10 cars, you will still find yourself uh, that you are unable to um, overrun your biases. So, we always have a bias on something, and one of the reasons for going through the full exercise is to make sure that we prove our biases wrong. I mean, that's one way to make sure that we have made an informed choice. So, I'm going to run through some of the typical biases that we have, and we should be we should know whether they are affecting our choices. So the first thing I want to discuss is the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is the concept of an SUV. So the first thing to understand is that in this mid segment of 15 to 25, which covers um, Grand Vitara, covers Brezza, Maruti Brezza, it covers Honda Elevate, Hyundai Creta, Kia Seltos, Kushaq Tycoon. Then there's a Volkswagen crossover SUV also in this space. So there is a whole range of vehicles there is a MG Aster. So it's not an exhaust list, but there's a whole basket out there. I'm not talking about vehicles in the 25 plus range. So I'm not discussing vehicles which potentially can become 7-seaters like your Innova variants or Mahindra XUV 700 and so on. I'm also not talking of vehicles which are in the sub 4-meter segment, which are smaller crossover SUVs or smaller sedans, smaller cars. So I'm focused only on this mid segment specifically because this is the feature rich segment of the car segment. Now all the so-called SUVs in this segment are crossover SUVs. So let me explain, and this is a very important one. Remember that you have a choice of more choice of the crossover SUVs in the segment than sedan. There are actually only 4 sedan models in this space compared to 10 to 12 crossover SUV models. And typically the sales, if you look at the sales figures, 85-90% of the sales are in the crossover SUVs segment, and the sedans make up only about 10, 12, 15%. So it's a segment which has been taken over by this crossover SUV segment, and people of course like to call it SUVs. But I want to explain why it's not an SUV. They're actually crossover SUVs. First thing to understand is that when moment you talk about an SUV, you're talking of an off-road experience, right? Which means it should be a 4-wheel drive. These are not 4-wheel drives. These are 2-wheel drives. So you can't really go seriously off-road. The second aspect of an off-road experience is that you have a high ground clearance. Now all these vehicles have an approximately 1 inch. So instead of a 6.5 to 7 inch with a sedan, these will have a 7.5 inch ground clearance, except Honda Elevate, which probably has an 8 to 8.5 inch ground clearance. But that's the difference. It's only that much, that 1 inch extra ground clearance is what we are discussing. Instead of 6.5, 7, you're talking of 7.5. So it's not a steep ground clearance, which is going to make a material difference when you go off-roading. Anyway, it's a 2-wheel drive. The crossovers are 2-wheel drive, so it really doesn't add up. The other misconception is that because it's thought of as an SUV, that it has more space. Here is the bad news: it doesn't. The internal space is actually same. I'll explain where there's a difference, but just hold on for a minute. The boot space in this corresponding sedans in this spec segment is 10 to 15% more than the crossover SUVs in this space. Which means if you're going for a long drive, you should actually have the sedan because it has more boot space, more luggage can fit in. The number of people who can sit in the cars is identical whether it's crossover or it's sedan. The only time the crossover SUVs will have a difference for internal seating is if the person sitting is about 6 feet 2, 6 feet 3 inches or more in height, then the roof space makes a difference. Because when you sit, that's the kind of extra space that you need, and so that's where the crossover SUVs will gain. But other than that, not really in any other fashion. Also, for long drive, highway drive, drives in which you are taking steep turns, curves, there is a concept of a body roll which is not so good in the case of a crossover SUV because of a higher elevation and higher height compared to the sedan. So for a hill drive, for a long distance drive, for aerodynamics, for vehicle stability at turns, even for fuel usage, okay, because the weight is 10% lighter, same engine, so you're going to get a better fuel mileage in the sedan. So it really makes very little difference, reason for you to say that I want a crossover SUV because I have a quote unquote large family, I want to travel long distance, and I have a lot of luggage. If you have those criteria, you should take the sedan, not the crossover SUVs. If you want to take the crossover SUVs because they look good, that's very important when you buy a car, right? So it should look good. If you feel it looks good, if you feel that your family and others around you feel better, and you feel better because you have this crossover SUV, which everybody is calling an SUV, then take it. That's a different model. But it does not satisfy any of the reasons that are being touted off. It's not good for long distance drive. There's nothing. It's for city drive, sedan is always better. For long distance, sedan is better. For fuel consumption, sedan is better. Boot space is better. Aerodynamics of the car is better, and the internal sitting space is identical. So don't get confused. And the engines are same, right? And fuel mileage is better in the sedan. So except for that little 1-inch ground clearance, which some people will tend to exaggerate a lot, I don't think that's the reason. You should be looking at the crossover SUVs for the simple reason that you like it, the looks of it, number one. Number two, you are extremely tall, you're 6'2", 6'3" or more, and a couple of people like that in your family, sure, then probably want to look at it because the headroom space may make a difference to you. Other than that, be clear, you're buying it for its looks, for no other reason. And so therefore this thing should be very clear in your mind. So the next big elephant in the room is the what is popularly called as the ADAS system. So remember so I have used the ADAS system, which consists of multiple things: the collision braking system, the highway related adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, um, lane departure mitigation systems, and they are actually very useful. The problem that you have is that the understanding of these features becomes a problem, especially because there are not too many customers who have so far used it or understood it. The dealers also have not necessarily understood it. That's really the problem. So some dealers have, some haven't, for the same car. So what happens is, when you go to the car dealer and you have a conversation, I had this experience with a few of them in the past. uh, they did the sales guy himself or herself, they don't know what it is. And so, the easiest way to not look silly or not knowledgeable enough is to desell something. So they will tell you, it's India may is not of any use, who wants to use it, you don't take that, you take that other model. So you have to be careful about this, because the lack of knowledge of the dealer sales team has an impact. The features are actually fine, and they don't actually understand how and where it kicks in and how it doesn't kick in. And so my suggestion to you is that if you find that the dealer sales support on this is poor when you're evaluating it, please have a direct conversation with the helpline of the car manufacturer. And all the car manufacturers have a simple helpline. You can drop a mail, they immediately call you back. Everyone is very good at this kind of sales support. They'll call you and they will run you through in detail how that particular feature works. Also remember that all the manufacturers have the operating manual of all their models on their website. You can simply download the PDF. You can download the PDF, and when you download the PDF for each of these features, you can actually go through it, which explains how it works and how it doesn't work and when it doesn't work. So it's given in very good graphic detail. I've actually made a separate video on these safety related features, And if you subscribe to my channel, you should be able to sometime in the near future take a look at it. But that's the key, that you must consider this feature and not go with opinions or uninformed opinions of people who haven't used it by saying, "Arey, India mein this is not very useful in India," or the sales staff guy who says this is not very useful in India. None of these idiots have actually used it. So take an informed opinion before and think about how you drive, what you don't do, and then make a call on it. And shortly, when my other video is out, you will get a better insight into the ADAS system. But do consider it, do not brush it out. It's extremely helpful and a good safety feature for you to have. Let me now go to the next big issue that we should be careful of when we buy a new car, and that's the feature which is called the connected car feature, also called as telematics. And these features typically enable you to operate your car remotely through an app which the manufacturer gives. You can operate some key features like opening your car doors, unlocking them, your boot. You can start your AC of the car if it's an automatic transmission. You can locate where your car is. You can send a geofence perimeter around the car so that somebody else to whom you have given the car crosses distance, it hoots. It gives you a burglar alarm if the car is broken into, and there's a whole lot of features which are extremely useful. It also in some cars like Honda City, which is this car, it also gives you a voice interface through actually like Alexa, and you can find out your fuel status, tire status, the whole works. So this is a very useful thing. Manufacturers, salespeople, most car dealers don't have a grip on this. It's not that core territory, all this app business. So they will not try to sell you. They will not want to talk about it because they don't understand. You got to be careful that you about this, because these are useful. Only caveat is it works typically 90% of the time because car manufacturers have not taken sufficient care as of date on their servers. So 1 on 10 times it may not do something or not give you some information which you wanted, and so to that extent it's not 100% reliable, but it's not a it's a feature which is very useful. And as more and more people take it, then of course the car companies will be forced to tighten up their back-end servers. But you must evaluate it, and don't take it lightly, because see, if you don't want these features, a lot of these features like I said, ADAS and telematics and other stuff, and then you are basically looking at a sub 12 lakh segment of cars. And if you're looking at this 15 to 25 lakh segment, is because of these features. So you must evaluate these are very useful. I would like to conclude this video with a caution on this whole topic of fuel usage. This is an obsession with us in India about kitna deti hai. Now let's just ignore what the manufacturer is saying on fuel consumption. All the cars in this segment will do the same thing. It just depends on where you're driving, what you're driving. If you're driving fully loaded AC in the city, 15 kilometers to 20 kilometers hour, 20 kilometers in an hour kind of range, 10, 11, maybe 9 kilometers per hour is what you will get. If you're on the highway, you will get over 16, 17, 18, whatever. That's what you will get, and it all depends on driving condition. It doesn't matter. You will never be able to make out whether this particular car is giving more or less. I think there is no point really in fretting about it beyond a point. And I would give that a very low weightage, though it's a very high weightage for people because they like to ask the number, and then they like to discuss, "Arey, meri car itna de diye," but it's actually a bogus number. Frankly speaking, I think we have to be a bit careful about boiling ourselves too much over it. So I would like to conclude this video, and I hope this was useful. I have basically tried to give information on the process and the pitfalls of buying a car in this 15 to 25 lakh mid segment, and how to make a good decision, and what is the process and what to watch for. And I hope it was useful. Thank you.